Men's basketball bounces back against Iowa State after losing early this week. Women's basketball falls to ranked opponent in Baylor. Everything you need to know about this Sunday Super Bowl and more, all coming up on this week's episode of College Press Box.
Good evening and welcome into College Press Box. I'm your host, Jason Kinander. He's Robert Gonsoulin, and we have a great show for you today. The men's basketball team looked to rebound at home against Iowa State on Saturday after falling to Texas Tech in Lubbock on Tuesday. The Longhorns faced off against yet another ranked opponent, the 20th ranked Iowa State Cyclones. Let's take it to the drum for the highlights. And we begin just a minute into the game. Marcus Carr finding Courtney Ramey in the corner for a splash. Texas's offense looked to start fast. Here's Andrew Jones with a thunderous slam. Early lead would be stretched out to 7. Here is Cyclones freshman phenom Tyrese Hunter burying the three-pointer. Midway through the first half, Timmy Allen on the floor fighting for the loose ball, feeds it to Trey Mitchell. Mitchell gets it inside to Christian Bishop, who flips it up with the contact for the circus finish plus the foul. End of the first half, Bishop again, this time on the lob from Marcus Carr. Carr would take it into his own hands to finish the half, burying the three-pointer, giving the Longhorns a 2-point lead into the break. Texas would not be done there. Here's Carr picking up right where he left off with another three to begin the second half. Texas would keep it going. Here's another three-pointer. This time it's Courtney Ramey, Cash, Jace Febres this time on another possession to Ramey, to Andrew Jones, good as gold. Texas still not done from beyond the arc. It's going to be Marcus Carr to Andrew Jones again. Still nothing but net. How about a little encore from Mr. Jones? Different corner, same result. Ask you to Jones, bang from 3. It's an 11-point lead. Texas would go on a 17-2 run, punctuated by this slam. We had our very own Tommy Yarrish at the Frank Irwin Center on Saturday to catch the game. Here is Tommy live from the drum after Texas's 22-point victory.
Number 23 Texas hosting number 20 Iowa State in their second meeting of the year. The Cyclones took the first one by a 9-point margin. Longhorns looking to bounce back from the gut-wrenching loss in Lubbock, and how's this for a start? Andrew Jones throws down the open dunk. And then a few possessions later, Courtney Ramey on the inside. Can't find anything, so hit him on the left wing. Wide open triple, and that's automatic for Andrew Jones. Texas starts 4 for 4 from the field to jump to an early lead. But Iowa State is far from phased. Isaiah Brockington goes on an 8-0 run by himself. There's his first and one, and here's his second. Iowa State climbs their way back into the game while Texas struggled. They shot 29% from the field after the perfect start, but it wasn't all bad. Trey Mitchell finds Christian Bishop under the basket, and he gets the acrobatic shot to fall plus the foul. He's fired up about it. Then at the end of the half, they go to him again. Marcus Carr gives him the alley-oop, and he slams it home. Carr's going to get some of his own here as well in the corner as time expires. Buries the corner 3. Longhorns go on a 5-0 run to close out the first 20 minutes and take the lead. And then in the second half, starting off just how they finished the first. From beyond the arc, Andrew Jones hits the corner 3 there, and then Marcus Carr gets the long 2 to go. They hold the Cyclones to 18 points in the second half. And after the game, Andrew Jones talking about what happened in that second half to turn the tide after struggling in the first.
It's always good to take a lead in the second half after going on like a small run. We came together knowing that we're not going to play this game to lose. We're just going to keep playing aggressive, keep going hard and try to extend the lead as much as we can and not be the victims. So we wanted to go out there and pose our will as much as we could.
With the number 1 team in the Big 12, Kansas, on their way to Austin for Monday night, Coach Beard talked about what needed to change to get a win.
What do we got to work on? Just being us. I don't care. It's a 1-day turnaround, but even if it was a 14-day turnaround, you still, you worry about us. We're good enough where it's about us. It's not really about the opponent. So when we play Texas basketball, we feel like we can play with everybody.
63-41 win for the Horns after a disappointing loss in Lubbock to Texas Tech. Marcus Carr comes up big for Texas today, 14 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds, and defensively holding the Cyclones to just 18 points in that second half following their 79-70 loss earlier in this season in Ames. Horns will be back in this building on Monday night to take on a tough in-conference opponent in Kansas. Signing off from the Irwin Center, Tommy Yarrish, TSTV.
I'm lucky to be joined by our men's basketball analyst, Tommy Yarrish. Men's basketball came into Saturday's game after losing to Texas Tech by 13 points. We'll break down how the Horns fired back. After a slow start to the game, the Longhorns came alive in the second half shooting the ball. What was it that changed after the break?
Well, really the X factor in the second half for Texas was the shot selection. In the first half, there was a bit of a mixed bag. There were some bad shots that just weren't open, or even in some cases there was just a better option available, and the hesitancy to take those open looks and shots weren't falling off the back was really the X factor. The Longhorns shot 29% from the field in the first half after starting off perfect on their first 4 shots, and that definitely sort of led to some possessions where guys didn't want to pull the trigger. They had a little bit of hesitancy, as I mentioned, and Chris Beard let his guys know about it in the locker room, telling them in a nice way, shoot the ball. And they did that in the second half. They shot 43% from beyond the arc, and it was the backcourt that showed out for Texas in that area. Andrew Jones, Marcus Carr, and Courtney Ramey combined for 8 of the 9 Texas threes that they hit in that game. And as soon as the shots started falling, the confidence was there. It was easy for the Longhorns to start running away with this game.
Sticking with the theme that Texas looked like a whole new team in the second half, their defense was on point after the break as well. What sparked that?
Well, it really started with a quick 5-0 run at the end of the first half, and that ended up giving Texas the lead at the break. Then in the second half, there was much better communication. Iowa State loves to run that pick and roll game, and they just couldn't. There was a lot of disruption as well. Cyclones turned the ball over 18 times, and Texas capitalized incredibly well. 24 points off of those turnovers, limiting Iowa State to just 2 points off their own 12. So that margin really is a big separation point in a game like this. Combined with the fact that the Cyclones shot just 25% from the field in that second half, they couldn't find any sort of rhythm after the break to even try and make any sort of comeback, which is a good sign defensively for Texas. As several times this year, they've seen opponents climb back from big leads. We saw it against Tennessee. Nonetheless, it was an impressive performance, to say the least, as holding one of the better teams in the country to 18 points in that second half is no easy feat.
With this win, Texas improves to 6-4 and remains 4th in the Big 12 standings. And they've got a big challenge coming up with 10th-ranked Kansas coming into town. What's going to have to happen for Chris Beard and company to pull off this upset?
Well, I think if people are saying this game is a lot closer than it should be. I think that the Longhorns are going to have to play perfect in every aspect of this game if they want to win the matchup. Kansas is a well-known, very physical team that'll outwork you if you don't match their tone of play. So right from the jump, Texas is going to have to start off strong. They'll need another big scoring night from their backcourt, and the big guys like Christian Bishop and Trey Mitchell, if he's healthy, will need to crash the boards heavy as the Jayhawks out-rebound teams by a margin of +6 on average, defensively and offensively. Lastly, they'll need to be active on the defensive end again, not only causing turnovers, but converting on them in transition like they did against Iowa State.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Tommy. When we return, we will take a look at what went wrong for Texas women's basketball in Waco.
Welcome back to College Press Box. We now segue into women's basketball, where they fell to powerhouse Baylor yesterday.
We now welcome in our women's basketball analyst, Carter Yates. Carter, thank you once again for joining us. So Texas dropped 2 games over the weekend to Baylor and have now lost a whopping 13 consecutive games to the Bears. What went wrong? Why can't this team figure out Baylor?
Well, at this point in the season, going through a grueling Big 12 conference stretch, Texas is really starting to feel the absence of last year's double-double machine, Charlie Collier. You can't replace a player of Collier's caliber, but up until now, the Longhorns haven't found a combination of players that even scratches the surface of her production. When combining the stats from both of these matchups against Baylor, Texas got outscored in the paint 52-32. The Longhorns had no answer defensively for Baylor senior forward Nalissa Smith, who scored 25 points and went 10 of 12 from the field on Friday before coming into the Irwin Center on Sunday and shooting 11 for 18 with 28 points. And while Baylor is shooting at high percentage clips, Texas shot 37.3% on Friday and 35.8% on Sunday. When you shoot 30% from the field and get dominated in the paint, that's not a recipe for success.
Absolutely. This weekend couldn't possibly have went worse on paper for Texas women's basketball. But looking ahead to the rest of Big 12 play, what do Vic Schaefer's Longhorns need to work on in that matter and accomplish throughout the rest of the season?
Well, I think it's important to note that the Longhorns have been in this situation before. Last year, they took a mid-February trip to Waco and got beat 60-35. But they went on a run to close out the regular season before an Elite Eight tournament showing. But the Longhorns have to work on two things: free throws and ball movement in Big 12 Conference play this season. Texas has shot 68% from the charity stripe, and they are 9th in the Big 12 in free throw percentage this season. Now, this is a young squad with only 3 seniors on the roster, but they really need to start gelling together more offensively and sharing the ball. The Longhorns have a .85 assist-to-turnover ratio, meaning on the season they have more turnovers than assists, and they are 9th in the Big 12 in raw assist numbers.
Quite the eye-popping stat. Now, who is the X factor on Texas that you're looking for down the stretch?
Well, I just mentioned that Texas is a very young team, and when you have a young team, you need to rely on the few veterans there to provide leadership and accountability. That's why my X factor is Joanne Allen-Taylor. Allen-Taylor was an integral piece of the Elite Eight team from last year and constantly draws praise from Coach Vic Schaefer for her work ethic. But she's been in a bit of a shooting slump this season, hitting only 39% from the floor. But if Sunday was any indicator, look for Allen-Taylor to start getting hot at the right time. She was 8 for 10 and piled in 18 points. If Allen-Taylor can start to knock down shots, she can form a scary backcourt paired with Aaliyah Matharu and Rory Harmon.
Thanks for joining us, Carter. We'll be sure to keep an eye on the Horns as they take on Texas Tech Wednesday night. When we come back, we dissect everything about the big game on Sunday, including quarterback previews and more.
Welcome back into College Press Box. So this upcoming Sunday, the NFL will once again take center stage with Super Bowl 56. This year it's featuring the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. That's all you need to hear from me. We are now joined by Harrison Chiu, who is with us to preview the big game. Take it away, Harrison.
Thanks, Jason. Well, we all know what week it is. It is Super Bowl week. This Sunday, we have a matchup none of us expected at the start of the season. The Los Angeles Rams, led by Matt Stafford and Coach Sean McVay, will battle Joe Burrow, Coach Zach Taylor, and the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56. The Bengals will look to capture the team's first ever championship after 2 previous appearances, but they will have to win in enemy territory in SoFi Stadium, as this is only the second Super Bowl held in a team's home stadium. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Both QBs were drafted first overall, but their careers couldn't have been any different. Matthew Stafford, Highland Park and Georgia Bulldog product, was traded to the Rams after 12 seasons with the Lions this past offseason. A 3-10 record after 2 seasons and a combined 74-80-1 record with the Lions overall. Stafford often was the only reason the Lions remained relevant during some down years in Detroit. While his stats were through the roof, Stafford lost all 3 playoff games he played in. After a fresh start in LA with some threats on the outside, he put up close to 5,000 passing yards and 41 touchdowns in a 12-5 season. To this point, Joe Burrow has obviously had tremendous success. He has won a Heisman Trophy and a national championship for the LSU Tigers. Now he has led the Bengals to the Super Bowl in only his second year, averaging a 70% completion percentage and a 108 passer rating. His path to the Super Bowl consisted of taking down the Vegas Raiders, ending the longest active drought of a playoff victory in the 4 major North American sports. After his wins against the Titans and the Chiefs, Cincinnati is already prepared to call him the next Joe Montana. As we transition, it is important to note the 2 coaches in this matchup. Both coaches are under the age of 40, making them 2 of the youngest coaches in NFL Super Bowl history. For McVay, the word redemption comes up. After losing a Super Bowl to Tom Brady and the Patriots, he desperately wants to win this one. The Rams have loaded up this year in a win-now mentality, and as the favorite, there is a substantial pressure on McVay to utilize his playmakers, manage the clock effectively, and make in-game adjustments when needed. Zach Taylor, on the other hand, has endured 2 tough years after going 6-25-1, but the Bengals stuck by him, and so have his players, because his confidence and his charismatic personality has reshaped the Bengals organization. Let's shift to the keys of the game. Where the Rams can look to neutralize the Bengals on offense is in the trenches. It is no secret that after the Tennessee and Kansas City game, Burrow has been uncomfortable with his timing and space in the pocket. His offensive line allowed him to be sacked 51 times, the most of any QB. With midseason acquisition Von Miller, as well as Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd, the Rams are at their best when they can generate pressure and wreak havoc in the backfield. On the other side, the question for the Bengals will be how and if they can protect Burrow. They know the Rams have Jalen Ramsey, who will likely follow Jamar Chase. So if the Bengals offensive line can protect Burrow enough, look for Burrow to find Tyler Boyd and 1,000-yard receiver T. Higgins for huge gains downfield. Flip it over to the other side of the ball. The McVay offense consisting of OBJ, Cooper Kupp as pass catchers, and Stafford under center makes them extremely dangerous. The Rams were 6th overall offensively, as they should have success against a middle-of-the-pack Bengals defense. The Bengals can neutralize Stafford, however, if they can put him in a 3rd and long as well as disguise coverages, because Stafford has been known to force throws in tight windows, resulting in costly errors late in games. The winner of the Super Bowl could very well be decided by the turnover battle. This will be an all-time game accompanied by an amazing halftime show. I hope everyone tunes in. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you for that, Harrison. When we return, we will take a look at what last week had in store for the remainder of Texas sports. You won't want to miss it. As we welcome you back to College Press Box, we want to take a moment to applaud women's swimming and diving sophomore Anna Olent, who broke the school record in the 200 breaststroke with a time of 2:04.69. The second-ranked women's swim and dive team beat Rice 156-103 in this weekend's Storkel Classic.
Our number 1 ranked baseball lost a close one by a score of 8-6 in the annual alumni game on Saturday. Infielder Dylan Campbell had himself a day. He accounted for a 3-run homer while going 4 for 5 on the day.
Women's tennis beats Missouri 7-0 on Sunday afternoon. The Longhorns are now 5-0 on dual match play on the young season. They'll return to action on Friday in the National Team Indoor Championship in Madison.
Taking a look ahead at this week in Longhorn sports, on Wednesday, the women's basketball team will look to avenge a rough weekend against Baylor in Lubbock against Texas Tech. That game will be at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. On Friday, tennis will take on whoever their draw will be. It will be announced early this week in the round of 16 at the Indoor Nationals. Softball will take on Clemson. Men's tennis will take on Rice. Softball will also take on Florida Gulf Coast in a doubleheader on Friday. Women's basketball will face Oklahoma at home at the Irwin Center. That game will be at 7 p.m. on Longhorn Network. On Saturday, women's tennis will continue playing in the ITA semifinals. Softball will take on Kent State in their 3rd game of the weekend. And men's tennis will take on UCF. And finally, men's basketball will head to Waco to take on the 10th-ranked Baylor Bears.
That'll do it for this week's episode of College Press Box. Make sure to tune in to our other shows this week, including College Crossfire on Wednesday and Want to Know Sports on Friday. On behalf of all the crew here at TSTV, I'm Robert Gonsoulin. He's Jason Kinander. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.